Hello everyone, my name is Justine Wild. I am the LGBTQ2S+ Subcommittee Chair for District 5360's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. So hello, welcome back, or thank you for joining us today. So, as I said, my name is Justine Wild. I identify as a bisexual woman and I use the pronouns she and her. So today's video is all about gender, and to bring it back to the LGBTQ2 acronym, we're specifically talking about transgender identities today. So let's just get started. I am going to center this conversation around the use of spectrums. I think they can be very useful in conversations about sexuality, gender, sex even, and that is where we're going to start. So let's talk about biological sex first, and then we will move into gender and all that good stuff. So, if we're thinking about a spectrum, over here we have female, and over here we have male. So, sex exists on a spectrum, and a lot of us, even myself included until fairly recently, we are fairly comfortable with the idea that gender is on a spectrum or sexuality is on a spectrum. But it can be hard for us to understand that sex is also on a spectrum. So biological sex does exist on this female to male spectrum. So what does that mean? So when we think about sex always has characteristics. We have primary characteristics and we have secondary characteristics. So let's go over some female sex characteristics. So these would be X and X chromosomes, ovaries, estrogen, the hormone, internal genitalia including fallopian tubes and uterus, external genitalia including the labia and vulva, and then our secondary sex characteristics, these come through in puberty. So this includes larger breasts, menstrual cycles, and shorter height. And then if we look at male sex characteristics, we have chromosome X and Y, testes, testosterone is the main hormone, internal genitalia including the prostate, external genitalia being penis and scrotum, and then our secondary sex characteristics would be more facial and body hair, taller height, and an Adam's apple. So when someone has both male and female sex characteristics, when they exist in this middle area, that is what we would consider an intersex person. And if you're thinking that that is very rare, consider the fact that intersex people make up about 2% of the population, and that is the same rate as someone with red hair. So it's actually a little bit more common than we might think. So to be intersex, you have to have characteristics in both female and male sex characteristics. I hope that's clear. Let me know if it's not. So moving on to gender. So gender also exists on a spectrum. So again, we have our feminine and we have our masculine over here. So if you're on the feminine side of the spectrum, you would identify as a woman or a girl and use the pronouns she and her. If you're over here on the masculine side of the spectrum, you would identify as a man or a boy, and you would use the pronouns he and him. So let's hold it right there, and then we'll come back and talk about the middle. So I want to pause and talk about mind and body alignment. So for a lot of us, we have both mind and body alignment. So the sex assigned at my birth was female, and I present as on the feminine side of the gender spectrum, so I match. So some people don't match. The sex assigned at birth doesn't match their gender expression. So for those of us who do match, we would be considered cisgender. But yeah, sometimes our sex expression or our gender expression and gender identity don't match our sex at birth, and totally normal, and that is what we would consider to be transgender. So there's so many transgender identities. Fortunately, we don't have time to go over absolutely all of them today, but I will give you a little bit of a little jump in if you're unfamiliar with these things. So the most common one that you've met someone, you've seen a celebrity, would be either a trans man or a trans woman. So we'll take this back to the spectrum. So these identities roughly mean that the person was assigned sex at birth, but their gender was on the opposite side of the spectrum. So trans men and trans women, they may feel the need to have hormone therapy or undergo surgery. It is a totally personal decision made by trans people. And please just refrain from asking if someone is transitioning or at what stage they're at in their transition. It's a very personal thing. If someone's going to share that with you, it really should be voluntary on their part. Okay, now this middle of the gender spectrum. So if you fall to the middle of the gender spectrum, you may identify with certain terms, and you may have heard of these terms. So they include genderqueer, gender neutral, or non-binary. And they would use the pronouns they and them. And these are also considered trans identities. I want to make that clear as well. So that might be a lot for some people. A lot of this might be new ways of thinking about sex and gender. And I just want to leave you with a couple quick notes. If this seems confusing, take that to mean that the small amount of confusion you might have understanding this is very small compared to someone who goes through gender dysphoria. So please respect and, come from a place of empathy even if you don't understand, accept that you don't understand. So if you're ever unsure, ask for someone's pronouns. It's very simple. All you have to say is, what are your preferred pronouns? And it is always polite if they don't ask you back to just offer yours up as well, just to show a little bit of solidarity. As well, it just eliminates any confusion. If someone starts to use a different name than when you met them, respect that as well. The biggest thing is respect pronouns, respect names, respect identities, and try your best. No one is going to expect you to be perfect, so as long as you are making an effort, that is most important. And that is really all I have for you today. So please join me again tomorrow for finishing off the acronym. If you have any questions, clarification, you want to correct me, please do. Leave it in comments, message our social medias, send me an email, all of that good stuff. And yeah, I will see you all again tomorrow. Bye.